The Founding and Manifesto of Futurism, Volume 2. We had stayed up all night, my friends and I, under hanging tiki lamps with domes of mache, domes transparent like our hearts, shining like them with the imprisoned shadows of digital souls. For hours we had slogged our exhaustion into pages of delegates, arguing up to the last confines of nihilism and brightening LEDs in our hands with atavistic testing. An immense disgust was buoying us up, because we felt ourselves all one at that hour, alone, asleep, and on our feet like fashioned lighthouses upon a shore built to warn of the coming falling stars, beckoning us to collapse before their deafening glare. Alone, with only cigarette butts feeding hellish fires of coming advertisements. Alone with the empty specters who press buttons inside hybrid automobiles gradually set on their inevitable courses. All one with drunkards reeling like buffering videos in some distant Wi-Fi cafe. Suddenly, we leapt, hearing the silence of a room full of notifications vibrating in pockets, ablaze with a blue light, like dates ruined by a sudden flooding of tapped fingertips and torn through information laden only with a measurable identifier called ignorance. And the noise hollowed out, but as we listened to the clinking glasses echo across the bar top of wood and steel, muttering feeble curses to each empty pint, we sensed the coming end to a night before we could see time itself worn. "Let's go," I said. "Friends, away! Let's go!" Ideology and mythical equality are defeated at last. We're about see the Sisyphean birth, and soon after the first flight of an Oculus Rift in memory, we must shake at the gates of life, test sinew and circuits. Let's go! Look there, on the earth, the very first dusk. There's nothing to match the splendor of the moon's somber sword, cutting for the first time through our millennial doom. We went up to the three-thwarted beast to lay lines upon their torrid brows as they rose. I stretched out on my Uber like a whore of the law, but revived at once under a phone charger, a guillotine baiting a line across my wrists. We went up to the three-thwarted beasts to lay lines across their torrid brows as they rose. I stretched on my Uber like a whore of the law, but revived at once under the phone charger, a guillotine baiting a line across my wrist. The raging Roombas of ennui swept us out of ourselves and plowed our hearts through the streets as rough as glasses made of birds and palm. Here and there, every billboard painted an image of domesticity, taught us to distrust the deceitful tacticians of our sagging inquisition. I cried, the memes alone are enough for our beasts to deliver us to glory. And like young crows, we pursued that murder of life, its transparent pelt, worryingly begging us to ignore vessels of blood beneath, as it had forever crawled out of our reach. But we had no idea, Antichrist raising his divine form to the cloud, nor any cruel king to whom to offer our passwords, twisted like boomer generation ideals. There was nothing to make us wish for death, unless the wish to be free at last from the weight of our belief in this omnipotence of our future. And on we lumbered, hurling QR codes against shop steps, curling them under smoking eyes like firewalls of our masters. Life, domesticated, met me at every turn, gravely holding out a business card, or once in a while running into the street, begging me to hold hands and head into traffic. Let's break out of the horrible shell of wisdom and throw ourselves like ignorant avatars into the empty, convoluted mouth of the winds of change. Let's give ourselves utterly to the web. Not in contemplation, but only to replenish the deep wells of the absurd. The words were scarcely out of my phone when I felt the car spin like a PR department, and there suddenly were a pack of dogs howling at our hulking forms, wobbling like the spirit of an egoist debate. Their dilemma was one of nature versus the ever-collapsing technology, but I stopped short, and to my disgust rolled over in a ditch with my cords long since severed. Oh, paternal ditch, full of muddy ideas, piss-ridden drain of minds, I gulped down your neurotic sludge, and I remembered the blessed black breast of my laptop when I came up torn, filthy, stinking from under the capsized car. I felt the white-hot device of snarking children's laughter pass through my heart. A crowd of line cooks with thick beards and tattooed arms were already swarming around the idea. With the delicate disgust of the people done with work, they fished out the car like a beach polygamist. Up it came from the ditch, slowly leaving in the bottom like spam messages its heavy framework of good sense and its flimsy plastic frame of security. And so faces sufficiently placated with nicotine, plastered with senseless sweat, foreign plastics with concrete reflections. We, bruised, our arms clotting but unafraid, declared our low intentions to all the living of the earth. Manifesto of Futurism, Volume 2. Number 1. Don't waste our breath. Breath. Breathe. Easy. The energy of fearlessness. Number 2. Courage. Narcissism and neglect will be essential elements of our poetry. Number 3. Up to now, literature has exalted a pensive quality, quiet reflection, and bored drama. We intend to exalt aggressive action, a feverish display of memes, the speed of reason, the mortal leap, the punch of nihilism, and the slap of stoicism. Number 4. We affirm that the world's magnificence has been enriched by a new beauty, the beauty of fatalistic individuation, erasing understanding that equality is not good enough if we are not individuals first, plowing forth into offensive labels and gestures with a willingness, like fiber across the ocean, to transmit the power of ourselves. Number 5. We want to hymn the man in heels, the circling spirit of progress entering orbit with dreams of colonies, rewriting the very nature of latitude. Number 6. The poet must spend himself, his memes, disregard, and confidence to swell the demeanor of that most digital of elements beneath our lives. Number 7. Except in virtuality, there is no more beauty. No work without an aggressive character can be a masterpiece. Poetry must be conceived as a violent act on a well-known force, to reduce history and force them to prostrate before man. Number 8. We stand on the last bastion of the centuries. Why should we fear late or fate when we must repeat history whenever we intend to or not? Time and space died yesterday. We already live in an absolute because we have created digital, analog intelligences. Number 9. You will glorify war, the world's only hygiene, isolationism until the hand is bit, patriotism until disgust forces our bile to rise, and the destructive nature of compromises, beautiful ideas worth dying for, and scorn for tirades of gender. Number 10. We will destroy the television's empty-handed held-helds of lies. Academies of forced labor debts will fight objectivism, corporatism, every opportunistic or utilitarian cowardice of culture. Number 11. We will live stream of great crowds excited by work, by hedonism, and by riot, and we will feed off the multicolored 144 hertz tides of revolution online. We will seed songs of the arsenals of our past being blunt, past greedy lines of cable hung between suburbs of solitary desperation, bridges of livelihoods bent and twisted by the winds flashing in the coming storms and shaking with terror, adventurous finishes of that great piece of art, our God, framed in a hard plastic, where wholly new virtuality can understand passion greater than the depths of an orgy. It is from America that we launch to the world this violently unsettling viral manifesto of ours. With it, today we establish futurism, because we want to free this land from its acrid scrabbling of politics, social justice lawyers, New York Times bestsellers, professional athletes, and Luddites. For too long has America been a dealer in customer service. We mean to free her from her numberless Starbuckses that cover her like so many graveyards. Equality, purgatory, identical surely in the sinister domesticity of so many minds akin to another. Equality, public restroom to that fear of being hated by unknown beings. Equality, absurd forum where moderators govern speech as kings and queens of old, subjecting the serfs to a prison of vox populi, a wall where no curse can be heard. That one should applaud Martin Luther King, or that simplest of civil union between two men, that I grant. That once a year parade celebrating history marching beyond Puritanism, I grant you that. But I don't admit that our suffering, our fragile courage, Our Lady of Restlessness, Ritalin, should be conducted through a lens of equality. Why poison ourselves? Why rot under the yoke of sameness? And what is there to see in the triumphs of equality but an overturning of history, fighting to not overthrow itself at every turn? Admiring the progress of society, overcoming adversity, is the same as poring over sensibility into a blog spot, instead of hurtling it far off in violent spasms of action and creation. Do you, then, wish to waste all your best powers in this eternal and futile worship of the past, from which you emerge fatally exhausted, shrunken, beaten down? In truth, I tell you, the daily visits to CNN, Facebook, and colleges, a screaming hurricane of wordlessness, a trophy case of stroking egos, registries of aborted beginnings, are for artists as damaging as the prolonged supervision by participation prize-giving parents to a blazing independent child. When the future is barred to them, admiring the past triumphs of culture may bring joy for the impotent, the numb-willed, the prisoner, but we want no part of it. We want the young and strong futurists. So let them come, the burning fissures of stagnant flame waving. Here they are, come on, set fire to the war against ourselves, turn aside the objectivism and flood the Constitution. Oh, the joy of seeing old ideas of peace bobbing adrift in those waters, discolored and bloodied. Take up your keyboards, your broken glass and curses loud, wreak and wreck the equitable cities pitilessly. The oldest of us is 30, so we have at least a decade for finishing our work. When we are 150, other younger and stronger men will probably throw us in the recycling bin like cassette tapes. We want it to happen. They will come against us, our successors, will come from afar, from every state, dancing to the metronomes of their first psalms, flexing the hooked claws of predators, thumbing as inspectors of the history of our great nation, expecting to find our hearts trapped within. But we won't be there. At least they'll find us. One summer's night, huddled beyond screens, avoiding the glare of a high sun, they'll see our tiny ideas trapped in virtual condoms at the tip of our fingers, and they will take the seed from our mechanisms and make fallow our fruits of old equality. They'll wrest timber from our seats, screaming obscenities we cannot decipher, and stroke the flames of a wall around our minuscule past, driven by hatred as admirable as that spirit that once drunk our evenings in mirth and love. Injustice, strong and sane, will break out radiantly in their eyes. Art, in fact, can be nothing but violence, cruelty, and injustice. The oldest of us is 30. Even so, we have already scattered messages of destruction, passion, retribution, have thrown life impatiently away in favor of greatness fluid and breathlessness, trying never to accept, only respect. Look at us. We are still untired. Our hearts know no tiredness because they are fed with hatred, pragmatism, and speed. Does that disturb you? It should, because you can never remember having lived as we do, hips thrust against the equator of the world, pressing upwards towards an impossible future. You have objections? Enough, we know them. We've understood. Our fine, deceitful intelligence tells us that we are the revival and extensions of our ancestors. Perhaps. If only it were so, but who cares? We don't want to understand. Woe to anyone who says those infamous words to us again. Lift up your heads. Hips thrust against the equator of the world, pressing upward towards an impossible future.